Then we jumped into the new game for the week that is a Game Pass release, Little Kitty Big City. Okay? So let's talk about this. You know, a couple years ago, I played a game that was called Stray. And that game, you played as a red, I want to say it was like a tabby cat, but I'm not sure. Not red, excuse me, an orange tabby cat. In a futuristic environment where all the humans had been basically, I guess, killed off. And all that was left was either a bunch of robots that kind of looked like, you know, AI-controlled robots, or a bunch of, you know, monsters and creatures. And so the game was about exploring this post-apocalyptic world, trying to find out what happened to the humans, solving tons of puzzles, and doing fun exploration. And at the end, it had a super heartwarming story. It really, really did. And it was a great game. It was pretty decently lengthy as well. And I really loved it. The graphics were great. The gameplay elements were great. I thought it was like, you know, a super unique Game of the Year contender style game that likes of which, you know, you don't really see. And FYI, makers of Stray have said the game did very well, and they are going to be making more games in the future, likely a sequel as well, which is all good news because the game was so good. Now, I'm a cat owner, right? And so a game like that means even more to me. Because, you know, I love having a cat as a pet, and to see, you know, a cat be the prominent star of a video game that accurately is controlled, you know, the different mannerisms and ways that a cat would act, it's kind of a neat thing, something that you don't see all the time. Usually you're always controlling a human in video games, right? Well, Little Kitty Big City is another game that if you're a cat lover or a cat owner, you're going to love this game regardless of the content, because it's more of the same. Although the graphics are a lot more cartoony, the main character, protagonist cat, is very realistic in the way that it moves and the way that it reacts to things. You know, you'll be walking along and it looks exactly like a motion captured cat, the way it jumps and platforms and climbs things, slides down walls using its claws, bats things around, you know, pounces on things, jumps in the trash can and hides, or even, you know, interacts with the environment. There's different emotes that you can unlock during the game. The kitty stretch, the lay down and curl up in a ball, right? So it's pretty realistic to how a cat behaves. So right off the bat, it's very cute. The premise of the game is simple. You're a cat in a big city, and you accidentally fall out of the window of the apartment you live in. You fall all the way to the ground. Luckily, you don't take any damage, and you have to get back to the apartment. Problem is, it's way the heck up on a tall building, and you don't know how you're going to climb up there. So the premise of the game starts off, you're just trying to figure out your way around the city. You can't touch water because cats hate water. So water is your main obstacle, preventing you from getting to other areas of the you know, the city, although there are things like walls, gates, and things that you can't climb. So basically, you're walking around trying to find ways under fences, jumping over and platforming on objects, etc. Until you finally run into a crow, and this crow talks to you. So I guess in this universe, animals can communicate. And the crow explains that it wants to help you by giving you a fish, and a fish would give you strength so you can climb things. But you need to bring it shinies, and shinies are essentially anything, you know, that's glinty or you know, metallic in the universe, whether it's a spring or a little nut or you know, whatever. And these are the primary collectibles of the game you're trying to get. They always glow in the environment, and you can get them from so many different ways. Sometimes they're just sitting out. Sometimes they'll be like a jar you knock over and it breaks open and there's a bunch of them. You can go inside of a trash can and jump out and then they fly out. You can pick up pieces of litter and bring it into a recycling bin, and then the bin will regurgitate out one. All right. Once you get your first 25 sparklies, then you can trade them in to get a fish, which is really cool. Once you get your first fish, now you can climb vines that are in the environment. The thing is, you only have one stamina, which is a paw, a cat's paw. So how cute. So you have one stamina bar, so you can't climb very far. The goal of the game is simple. Find 4 fish in the environment. Once you have all 4 fish, you'll have enough stamina to climb the vines that are on the side of your building, and then you can platform to the top of your building, and the game is over. Okay? So you might say, well, that sounds like a short game. Is that all there is to do? No, there's actually a ton of things to do. For example, you can pounce on birds to get feathers. The feathers you give to creatures in order to get abilities. This ability to fast travel all over the map is unlocked by getting feathers. You can find hidden nests. You can help a duckling or a duck who lost its ducklings, and they're hidden in the environment, and you get them to follow you back to the parent duck. There's a beetle that sadly has a phone that it was using, and the phone is damaged, so you have to find a replacement phone. There are little areas on the map that quite appropriately are perfect nap spots for cats. And anyone who has a cat knows cats have a tendency to find silly places to nap. And so there's like 7 or 8 of those in the map you can find. And you might say, well, that all sounds well and good, but what's all that for? Nothing. It's literally for nothing. All the content I described is content. It's very well in the game. It's challenging. Sometimes you have to solve puzzles and things. You have to do secret platforming areas and stuff to get to it. You really get nothing for it. It has nothing to do with the objective of the game, getting back to your home and ending the game. Now, the other thing about the game is that there are hidden balls in the environment. I guess they're supposed to be cat toys. To me, they look like floating Pokeballs or floating like fishing bobbers. You know, with those things that float above the water, above your fishing line. So when you get those, you always unlock something new, mostly hats. There is a ridiculous amount of silly hats in the game. And honestly, this kind of tells you where the game is set, because a lot of these hats are very Japanese-centric. They'll be saying, oh, the daikon radish, or a fruit you've never heard of, but you find out it's a Japanese fruit. And you kind of have a hint throughout the game that you think that it is supposed to be set in Japan, but it's never clearly stated in the environment or anywhere. You don't see Japanese kanji or anything that says, hey, you're in Japan. But once you start getting the hatch and you unlock it, you realize it's definitely you're in Japan, okay? And that's really like the cute thing about the game is finding these hidden hats and constantly just equipping them on the cat. It's really neat. But in reality, that's the extent of the game. So there's a bunch of collectathon stuff that's hidden items, and there's finding the 4 fish, and that's the entirety of the game. So to give you some perspective, I played Little Kitty Big City yesterday, and I was taking my time doing optional stuff as I came up against it. I played it, and I by the time that I was at the end of the game, I think I had around half of the hats. Okay, I think the game said it had something like 50 or 60 hats, something like that, and I had like half of them. I had gotten almost all of the birds' nests. I had found all but 2 of the napping spots. I had found 3 of the 4 missing ducklings. Okay, and you know, probably 1 or 2 other collectibles I'm not thinking of or aren't coming to mind right now. Okay, so in reality, I did a lot of the content of the game, and then I realized, oh, you can just beat the game by getting the 4 fish. Let me do that. At one point, when you complete a certain mission, you're actually given a map, and that map unlocks the locations of the critical items of the game, and that's how you know where the fish are. So once I had that, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna go get the fish. So I did. And then I proceeded to the end of the game, and in the entirety of the game, I ran into 2 bugs. There was one point where I was trying to platform, and there was a weird invisible object in the environment you couldn't see. And it was forcing me to not be able to do the platforming standard like you're supposed to. It was a weird glitch. After I approached it from a different angle, it worked like it was supposed to. So, kind of weird, but I got it done. The other thing is that the final sequence of the game, when you're climbing this giant tower, okay? Basically, you get to a certain point, and it's almost unclear, like, what the game wants you to do. And I'm like, well, what direction do I go here? I'm not sure. So, at one point, it shows like a scaffolding, an awning on it, like a tarp, and you could just repeatedly jump, and get to the top. I'm like, oh, okay, now what next? And it looks like there's a jump. You jump, and you just phase right through. You can't even walk through. You just phase through. So it's obvious that's not where you're supposed to go. But if that's the case, you shouldn't be able to get there. Like, they should have it. That tarp shouldn't be there. They should just block it off. But it's kind of a misleading area. I tried it 3 times, and I was like, I guess this can't be it. I keep falling through. Come to find out, there's another area on the other side of that level of your climb where you are supposed to go, but it's kind of hidden around a corner, and it's not apparent. So, there's one or two parts of the game where there's a little bit of wonkiness that could have been improved. But for the most part, the game is well done, well polished. It's silly. You can interact with the humans. For example, you could swipe at a human's leg and make them drop an object, and that might be an object you need for a quest. Like at one point, I needed a phone. So I swiped the human and stole their phone. Like, well, that's pretty cool. That phone's probably like over $1,000 in these modern times. You just stole their phone, right? So, I completed the game yesterday in one stream. Yes, no exaggeration. I think I played 3 hours, 20 minutes. I saw the vast majority of what the game had to offer, and I beat it. Now, could I have gone back and done more? Sure. Excuse me. Like I said, there's a few things I didn't do. I didn't unlock every nap spot. One of them was kind of elaborate, where you had to get a bagel from a human and then platform up a building, get back to this nap spot for a cat and ring its dinner bell, and then it will go eat the bagel, and then you could take its nap spot, right? So, I mean, I could have done that, the extent of that, right? I could have looked for every shiny. I could have looked for every hat. I could have saved the ducklings. But in reality, all you're working towards is an achievement. Because if you're playing this either on PC or on Xbox, you get achievements for these things. But that's it. There's like no big in-game reward for doing it. You don't need to do it to beat the game. It's just extra content. In fact, the vast majority of Little Kitty Big City is just that. It's extra content. After you've given 25 shinies to the crow, you literally never need to pick up a shiny ever again in the game. They're only used to unlock hats. That's it. And there's tons of them in the game. So, here's the thing. Little Kitty Big City, number one, if you're a cat lover, you're probably going to love the game because it really replicates the mannerisms of cats really, really well. That's number one. Number two, if you're a collectathon style person and you like platforming, you're probably going to like this puzzle platformer collectathon game. But outside of that, right, I really don't foresee this game making many waves. It's a cutesy little game. It's fine if you have an afternoon with nothing to do and maybe you're already a Game Pass subscriber and you just want to kill some time. You're like, oh, I'll check it out, right? But man, it's just nothing like what I thought it was going to be a more complex game. I mean, even if it was like 6 to 8 hours long, which, by the way, that's what reviewers were saying. They're like, oh, it's 6 to 8 hours long. That's completely false. The game is 3 hours long. You can play it for 6 hours if you're going 100% completionist, but the game is absolutely only 3 hours long. So, what are you talking about, right? And yeah, it's kind of silly that, here's the thing. I liked it. I enjoyed my 3 hours in the game. I feel like a game like this has a place in gaming, even though I'll be honest, I feel like it was kind of like short and sweet, but I wish it was longer because I actually was liking my time with the game, okay? Maybe there should have been 8 fish and the city should have been bigger. And, the puzzles get increasingly more difficult the further out you go in the city to get the fish or whatever. And it just wasn't. It was a pretty simple game. But basically, the way I see it is a lot of people hate on a game like this because they think every game should be at a minimum 12 to 15 hours. Every game should have a big challenge or whatever. I see a place in gaming for games like this that have a cute design, cute atmosphere. They fill in a gap of people who are pet lovers, right? Like, I get it. I understand why people would like it. Is it for everyone? Absolutely not. That's a niche. That's a little niche, a quarter niche. So a game like this is never going to be a big seller. A game like this is not going to break records, but it's definitely a cute game for a certain audience. And I definitely recommend it to cat lovers or puzzle platformer lovers, okay? But outside of that, you're probably not going to like it if you're not into cats at all. Like, I couldn't imagine someone who just doesn't like cats playing this game and being like, oh, what a great game. You know what I'm saying? And by the way, I'm just going to say this. People who are saying it's aimed for kids are complete idiots. They're fucking liars. They're morons. The only reason they say that is because of the way it looks. Bullshit. The game is not just made for kids. You can have relaxing games that are for adults. This definitely is a game for all ages. It's not just for kids. It's not just for adults. It's for all ages. Morons will say, oh, easy games are for kids. No, you're just a fucking idiot who doesn't understand. Relaxing games have a place in gaming for everybody. Just because you don't like them, because you're just this one-track mind person who only thinks challenging, adult-oriented games are for adults, you're an idiot. Okay? Okay. Anyway. So, overall, Little Kitty Big City is a fun game for a quick afternoon, especially for cat lovers, but it ain't special in regards to like, oh, it's long, it's game of the year material. Of course not. But I think it does have a place in gaming. There's a niche for it. It just so happens I was one of the people who would like it, but definitely way too short. For example, I had no idea it was that short, you know, and it is a little disappointing because I was hoping to play it at least 2-3 times this week. And now it's done. I'm not going back to 100% it. Heck no. I know that the collectibles are just for silly, oh, put on another hat, oh, get an achievement, right? So, yeah, it's kind of a little, it almost feels bittersweet to me because I liked it, but man, it was so short. I wish there was more to it, you know? Okay. So that's Little Kitty Big City. We're already done with it.